Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today we have a new session. So we will talk a bit about connections, and this will be about OData Cloud, specifically referring to D365, such as Business Central, Finance, and of course, D365 Sales. So the plan is to set up a new connection so I can explain the steps. And then if you have any questions, any concerns, you can use the chat and add your questions there. And then I will also show you the other connection types that are still OData, and you will see the patterns and everything that we have to add in there. Now, we have the agenda. So first and foremost, we'll dive into the connection setup, then questions. I will explain next which are the upcoming sessions if you want to attend, and then resources as usual. So I will go ahead and share my screen and explain the process. Okay. So the idea is that when you want to set up any OData connection in Rapidi, you do have to start with Azure, right? Because this is the place where you would register your app and then move forward with the other steps. So the first step that you have to go through would be app registration. So here, you click on app registration and then click on new. We can call this one Rapidi, let's say test 26. And then here we will choose a redirect URL because otherwise BC will complain about it. So we have to copy the URL. I will just grab it. I have it here. Okay, and then we just register the app. Now we have the app created. We have one redirect URL, right? But then we do have to go to API permissions because the app will not work without API permissions. So as you've seen, we have here add permissions, and then we go in and search for the system. So in my case would be Business Central, but it can be any of the other Microsoft ERPs. So here you have two sets of permissions. So you go first here, delegated permissions, and you select the ones from here. And then you go again through the same step and click on add a permission. Again, BC, and then application permissions. So this is what you would select for the application permissions. You add it, and then of course, we need to grant consent. I've done that. So you can see here it's green, access granted. Then of course, what we have to do next would be to create a certificate or a secret. In this case, of course, you need to have a client secret, which will be the password for your specific connection. So here we click on new client secret. You can just give it a name, demo, let's say ID. And then here you can decide when it should expire. So if you set it up to 3 months, for example, then within 3 months, you will get errors from BC or any other Microsoft ERP saying that this has expired. You have to add a new secret. So just so you know that if you have like a short period of time set up here, you have to go in and add a new secret as the password. In my case, I would say 18 months. I will add it. Now you have the secret created. So the only thing you need here would be the value. So I'll just copy it. So I have it ready when I go into BC. So this part is done. So in Azure, you have done most of it, right? So you have the app created, you have the API permission set up here, and then you created the secret. So that's good. Now we have to go in Business Central. So here, we'll search for Entra. This is how they call it, Microsoft Entra, and then we just do new. So here, you will have to add the application ID, right? Because you need to connect Azure with the Business Central instance, right, that you have there. So let me go and I'll copy my secret somewhere here so I don't lose it. And then we will go to Azure again. We'll go to Overview and then see here you have the application ID here. I'll just copy this one, put it here. I'll give it a name. Mine was called Rapidi. I think it was test 26, right? And then we just enable it. Okay, so I've enabled that, but now I do need to add permission sets because again, without permissions, you cannot do anything. So I will just add, so the ones that you need are automation, and then it depends. Sometimes it can have a different name, but you can still find it. And then admin. So anything that is admin related, right? And then in my case, I have a specific setup, so I need to add something else here. Let me see, where is it? The user. Okay, so that's that. And then I'll just grant consent. We'll do that. So then you have to accept here the access that you provide to it. And then this has been done. Okay, so then we have it in BC created, all good. Now we have to go into Rapidi. So this is my service, my test service, right? So I want to create a connection. So if you look here, you have a drop down. So for Business Central, you would go with this one, which says BC Nav OData. If you were to go for finance, you would choose this one, FNO OData. If you were to use if you need a connection and connect to D365 sales, you'll go for this one. I mean, either way, they still have to go through Azure and you'll have to add the same information. So I'll go with this one and create connection. So here I will choose authentication. I'm going to pick this one. And here under Server Connect, I need to copy the OData URL from my environment, right? So I go back to BC and I'll close this one and then go to Web Services. We just go here and then I will just search for the easiest one, which is the customer card. So the customer card here. So this would be the URL that I need. Let's see if it allows me to copy it. Okay. So this would be the URL that I would copy. And the company name in my case would be the one that I have here. So if I go back, this would be the company name. Just copy it. Then we go to user ID. So if you remember in Azure, if you go to the app, you'll have the application ID or client ID. So this is the one that we have to copy. So I'm going to copy this one here, user ID. Okay, let's see if we have it correct. Okay, and then the password, which is the secret, I'll go and grab it and put it here. So then we have it copied, right? And then we have domain. So domain is just the base URL that you have here, which is this one. Well, my bad, that's the resource. The domain would be the tenant. So then for domain, we have to pick the tenant that's associated with this specific app. Okay, we'll go here. And then we'll have metadata URL. So then we'll just copy. We have to copy until OData v4. We put it here. Slash, we have to put, let me see, where is my, okay, metadata. And then use SSL. And then I added all of this. Let me see if that's going to work or allow me to connect. Yeah, so usually what happens is that we forget to uninstall this connector, right? Because this is a cloud connection, right? So then when you create it immediately, it will also add this Rapidi connector in case you need it. But that's not the case, so I'm going to remove it. right? And then I'll try to test it again. Perfect. So I was able to test it. So when you see this message, it means that you got connected, you are all good. Now, step number 2 is to redesign, because you have to see, if you have access to everything that you have in Business Central. So you click on this one and it should start reading the tables and everything you have there. When it comes to OData, you will not see the specific tables that we have access to. You'll only see, the number of like the records and tables or everything you have, like the metadata. You don't see specific tables like, oh, you have access to customers or contacts. Now, so when it comes to Business Central, one way for you to check what you have access to is to go to Web Services here. And everything that's here on this list, you should have access to it via Rapidi. If you're searching here for a page and then you cannot find it, it means that you haven't published it yet. So you need to add it. You have here new, add the page, save it, and then you go back to Rapidi and redesign, and then you should be able to access that correctly. So this is very important because sometimes you only have a few pages here, then you redesign in Rapidi, and then you realize that certain things are missing. But those are missing because they're not published yet. Now, when it comes to any BC connection, you can have here the OData page, or you can have an API page. So with both, you can connect to Business Central. So there's no difference, because I know that now API pages will be used more often, and there will be a switch from OData to API pages. But even in that case, you can set up the connection in the same way and still access them and read data and do everything that you need to do for that specific connection. Now, I want to show you some other examples. So let's see, for example, this one. So this one is a finance, and let me see if I have one AX here. I think this one would be a good example. So this is finance. So as you can tell, there's not really a huge difference between finance and BC when it comes to the actual connection. So here you would still have the instance URL. In this case, you have the company that you're connecting to, the user, which is the Azure application ID. The password is the secret that you have set up. The domain would be the tenant. And then resource is always the base URL that you have in here. So like this. And then you have metadata URL, which is, of course, everything until data in this case, and then followed by metadata. So most of them are the same. You just have to go through the same process. So having the app set up in Azure, then setting up the app also in finance, meaning adding the app ID and everything, and then coming here and adding all the information. So as you can see, the process has a specific pattern, and then you would go through all of them like that. And then if we were to look at the other one, which is D365 sales, you have the same information here. So you can definitely go through that and set up any OData connection if you follow all the steps correctly. And then, as I mentioned before, so if you set up the app in Azure and then you have a secret valid for 3 months, then remember that you have to create a new secret when the initial one expires. Now, on any app, you would have the secret, right? But then if this one expires, then you simply have to go in here and click on new client secret, create a new one, and then you copy the value that you have here, meaning the new value. You come into Rapidi and you update only the password field. After you have added the password, you just save the connection and you test it, just to make sure that everything is okay. If you forget to add the new secret as soon as the initial one expires, you will be notified. So from My Rapidi, you will get error notifications, and they will say that the client secret for this app has expired. So you have to go in and create a new one. So you will know definitely when you need to do something about that. So that's the process when it comes to OData. Let me check if there are any questions here. No questions. It means that I explained everything very well. So I'm glad that that was the case. Now, another thing about OData connections that's really important is when you redesign, right, you actually read the metadata from that system, right? So let's say you have access to customer and contacts. And then 1 month afterwards, then you are creating new fields on customers and contacts. When that happens, you have to go into Rapidi at the connection level and redesign again. And when you do that, you refresh the metadata, right, for that specific connection. And the same thing applies to new tables or pages that you publish. So then you really want to read from, let's say, sales orders in your ERP, then you need to publish that page, make sure it's available, and then redesign here. And as soon as you do that, you will be able to read that information. Like in my case, I had that specific connection, which is nav OData 003. So this one, right? If I go to any transfer, it doesn't have to be a transfer that I'm using, but if I go here and search for my connection and go and look for any page, then it will show me what I have available. Like if I just start typing customer card, then I see this table. If I say, okay, let's see if I have sales orders, right? So then everything that's available will be also seen here. And then if you open this page and you go through the fields and you say, oh, but I cannot see a specific field, then for sure that field has not been published on that specific page. So you have to go in, make sure it's published on the page, meaning visible in the UI, and then you redesign again, and then you should be able to go through the layout, meaning here, and then you should be able to see all the fields that you have available on that specific page or table, so to speak. And of course, you can also have access to any custom pages. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have published them, you should be able to see them. If a field is not visible, it means that it's not in the UI, so the end user is not seeing that, right? It's just something that's in the backend, and you need to bring it to the UI layout so that we can read that specific field. So I think that explains more or less the connection part. Let's go back to our presentation here. Let's see. I'll stop sharing for now. Okay, any questions? Let's see if you have any questions. Okay, so you are all good. You have all the knowledge that you need for that. Well, I think the process is pretty straightforward. So if you go through those, let's say, 3 specific steps, so to speak, you should be able to set up any OData connection. So you shouldn't have any issues to go through that, right? So then remember, you have Azure that you need to set up first. So that's first and foremost. And then second, you go into your ERP, make sure that you connect the Azure app with your BC, finance, or sales instance. And then when you are done with that, you go into Rapidi and add the information that's required. So that should be pretty fast, and it can be done. And then if you create one connection for one instance, you can do the same for the second connection. You can use the same app, basically, right? So you don't need to repeat, the process every time. And then now, of course, we have upcoming sessions that we organized. The next one is about Salesforce and HubSpot. So I will show you how to connect to Salesforce and also HubSpot, how to authorize the connection, how to reauthorize it, and everything that has to do with that part. And of course, we also have the full season available in case you want to register for any other session. So, for example, this would be the full season for it. So if it's if you find something interesting, if you need to attend any of the sessions, go ahead, register, and then we will make sure that we explain the process correctly, and then you'll have all the knowledge that you need in order to set up connections, transfers, and everything integration related. And of course, last but not least, it would be good to have feedback. If you think about certain topics that you want us to go through, or maybe there are things, maybe challenges that you run into and you want us to go through that and explain it from an integration point of view, we can also do that. So any content that you would like to see, and yeah, I think we can definitely put something together and explain everything to you and then other customers as well. And then here we have the resources. So we have the wiki. So when it comes to wiki, we do add new content, update current content, existing one. And of course, it's always changing because we are trying to have, put everything in there and have all the information up to date. If you notice that something is not explained well, that something is missing, maybe it's not explained thoroughly, for example, you can reach out, you can say, hey, this is what I've seen. I didn't understand everything that was written there. I need more. So we can adjust the content and make it more detailed if necessary. And then, of course, you have support. You can submit a case. If you have any issues or need any help with anything, then the product updates. This one is really interesting because you can subscribe and you can get good information right into your inbox. Well, we write a lot about really good topics, so I think that's definitely good to read about. And then the release notes. So we do have the release notes where we document everything that happened within a release. So like fixes, new functionalities, maybe new systems that we support, for example. So we do add that into the release notes so that you are aware of everything that's happening and what's new, basically. So you can definitely check those out. And yeah, I think that would be it for connections today. I don't see any questions, so we were very efficient for today's session. But I do hope that it was clear, and I do hope that next time you set up a connection, you will do it right away in 5 minutes without any issues. And yeah, if anything happens, just reach out to us, and we will be more than happy to help. Thank you for attending, and see you next week.